It's Teddy Covers. He's with us, as he always is, every morning on Betting with the Bag. Teddy, how are you this morning, my friend?
Hey, good morning, Ian. How are you today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Happy Halloween to you. I got to ask, because we know you've got a kid, Isaac Cash Savransky. What's the Halloween night plans for the young little man you've got, Teddy? What's his plan on
So
Halloween night?
he's got a nice dinosaur outfit, and he wants to go out with his friends by himself tonight. You know, Isaac's third grade, and I think I'm going to let him go around the neighborhood by himself. So I'll be home handing out candy, waiting for my kid to get back, hopefully safe. First time he'll be doing that. Should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely good stuff. Yeah, you're taking the training wheels off Isaac, essentially, is what you're saying. Yeah, it's time to. He's going to roam around the Las Vegas neighborhood on his own on Halloween. Good stuff. I remember those days. It was a long time ago, Teddy. That I'm putting on costumes, going door to door, trick or treating. But yeah, I mean, it's that kind of time, and that's the great thing about having a kid. You get to see them go out trick or treating on Halloween, get them their costume, see them in their costume. Absolutely great stuff there. Time to turn our attention now back to sports and the betting menu now on this Thursday card. We'll start with the Thursday action as we always do. I didn't cover NBA yet because I wanted to wait for Teddy to jump in on the three NBA games. We'll get to those in just a second. But first of all, Teddy, NFL football, San Francisco, Arizona, San Fran laying 10, the total 43 in this game. As I said, I'm not involved in this game earlier in the show. I look at this as a spot where, to me, it's not a value spot on San Francisco, laying 10 on the road when they're off a big, satisfying blowout win against Carolina. You're going to see an adjustment when a team's off that kind of dominant blowout performance like we saw from the 49ers. Certainly a lot to be impressed with. I mean, Tevin Coleman coming back recently from injuries sparked them on the ground game. Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't been great, but he hasn't been asked to do too much. And he's managed the offense well enough. I kind of expected more out of him, but that's quibbling right now with negatives regarding this San Francisco team that's still 7-0 on the season. Their defense, especially their defensive front, Nick Bosa and company, been absolutely dominant, blowing up the line of scrimmage repeatedly. I never saw San Francisco's defense being this good coming into the season, but they have been. I'm worried about that iffy Arizona offensive line that has also got cluster injuries at running back with Chase Edmonds and David Johnson banged up so bad they had to sign Kenyon Drake, trade for Kenyon Drake off the scrap heap from the Miami Dolphins. So they're banged up at the running back spot. Iffy offensive line against that San Francisco defense. Thank goodness, Kyler Murray has at least a little mobility and athleticism to him to maybe evade some of that. But matchup-wise, it doesn't work. I mentioned rookie head coach, rookie quarterback on Thursday Night Football. We know that's not usually a bet on situation. So the bottom line is, if you made me choose, gave me a free bet, I'd lay the 10 with San Francisco, but I'm worried we're not getting great value here. So I'm off the game entirely, Teddy. How about you, 49ers Cardinals?
I could pretty much say what he said because I agree with everything that you said there, Ian. For me, look, the look-ahead line here was San Fran -7. My powering number after the games were played last Sunday, it was San Fran -8, 8.5. I'm not going to lay 10 in that spot. With the hot team, with travel on Thursday night, all San Fran wants to do is win this game and get out of town. And you talked a little bit about Garoppolo and some of Garoppolo's struggles. I really think that has everything to do with the fact that the 49ers are playing without both starting tackles. They're playing without their fullback who keys the run game, Pro Bowl level. So it's not an offense that's clicking on all cylinders, and they still hung 51 last week. So, San Fran, not a team I'm looking to stand in front of, but most assuredly a team that you're not getting quote-unquote value with. They're the hot team. They're the flavor of the week. All of a sudden, people notice, hey, the 49ers are pretty good. And that isn't the team I want to lay double digits with on the road on Thursday night. So side-wise, it's an easy pass for me. Total-wise, it's just as easy. We've seen Arizona. The defense has been gashed against the pass. The offense has struggled in the red zone. That's a mix. You want the team to score in touchdowns in the red zone and the defense getting gashed, you play them over. Arizona's not that way. The red zone offense hasn't been there. The defensive acumen hasn't been there either. So we don't trust Arizona's not a team that is a clear over team or a clear under team. Or when we look at San Fran, that defense has been ridiculous, dude. It's exceeded all expectations. But offensively, despite the injuries, the 49ers are still capable of putting up 50 on any team that they face. So it's not an easy total. It's not an easy side. I don't have to play this game. That's one of the biggest edges we have over the bookmakers. Maybe the single biggest edge we have over the bookmakers, Ian. They got to put up numbers for every single game. And we get to go, yeah, we like this one. Yeah, we don't like that one. Yeah, we're going to bet this one. No, I'm not going to bet these three. That's our edge. We don't have to bet them all. I'm not betting this one.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny. I was talking to someone about this game the other day, just a friend of mine. And it's funny. And you mentioned his absence too, in terms of the San Francisco offense. And I've mentioned it many times. And my friend's saying, who the hell cares about Kyle Juszczyk? Do you watch the games? He's an integral part of this offense. Kyle Shanahan uses the fullback regularly in this offense in his scheme. Are you watching the Niners play on a weekly basis? Kyle Juszczyk was a big part of this team and the way they ran their offense. So to me, I kept trying to tell this guy, hammer it through his head. That's a bigger absence injury-wise than you think it is. And you mentioned it too. And you're right. They've just not had their offensive line intact. The fullback's part of the blocking scheme. And you're right. That's probably to some degree. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo, I believe, too, has to play better than he has so far this season. But he's definitely been impacted negatively by the offensive line injuries, fullback injury to Kyle Juszczyk, all that. So it's good to see you point that out as well, because to me, that I agree. That's a more undervalued, underrated injury, much more than people think. So Teddy and I both passing on this game. How about college football, Teddy? I'm involved in the Baylor West Virginia game betting wise. We'll get to that in just a second. But I'm looking at we'll start with Georgia Southern taking on App State, a little Sun Belt action. App State 14.5, 15 home favorites. This total's been whacked down from 50 to 44.5 now, pretty much across all books right now. And again, SBRodds.com. Make sure you're using that resource every single day to get the best line and price out there with every bet you make. SBRodds.com should be something you use every single day. This is an interesting game because we know Georgia Southern beat App State last year as underdogs, beat them outright. Prior to that, was 3-0 straight up, 3-0 against the spread for App State head-to-head against Georgia Southern. It's an App State team that kind of like the way I felt about SMU last week, where I didn't want to go against the team that's undefeated, that's playing a national TV game with a point to prove, although it didn't work out for SMU. I mean, they barely survived getting the straight-up win last week against Houston. But for App State, I'm not looking for reasons to bet against them right now. They look like the class of the Sun Belt. Eli Drinkowitz, who I thought was a good hire, did a good job as the OC with Ryan Finley those years at NC State. And you look at where NC State's offense is now without Eli Drinkowitz. It's way down from where it's been. That was a good hire by App State, getting him after Satterfield took off for Louisville. So to me, I like this App State offense. Zach Thomas is a good quarterback. They can run the football. Georgia Southern, we know they run the football heavily, option offense. I get it. And the concern for me is you look at App State's defense the last 3 weeks. 7 points or less allowed to the three pretty decent Sun Belt offenses. These are, except South Alabama. South Alabama is the one that's not a good offense. But Monroe with Caleb Evans, pretty capable Sun Belt offense. Lafayette, they can put up points for Billy Napier's team capably. And App State shut both of those offenses down. And my concern here is they've given up just 3.2 yards per carry, a little more than 100 rushing yards per game. The last 3 games combined in Sun Belt play, comparable foes to Georgia Southern. If Georgia Southern can't run the football, can they hang within 14.5? That's a concern here for me tonight against an App State run defense. It's really shored things up in the last few weeks here. So to me, you're not getting a great value number with App State, but for me, it's just a game I'm not looking to really go against App State. It's an undefeated team. They want a New Year's Six bowl game. They know they got to run the table to make it happen. They get to be on ESPNU tonight, national TV. Those aren't the spots I'm looking to bet against a team that's clearly shown themselves to probably once again be the class of this Sun Belt Conference, that being the App State Mountaineers. Teddy, what you got for us with this Sun Belt matchup?
Well, I mean, Georgia Southern wants to shorten the game. And we talk about their option offense and their ability to run the football. If they can't run, they can't win. They can't compete, and it'll get ugly. We saw that once this year. That came against LSU in the opener. They had 98 yards of offense. They lost that game 55-3. Other than that, they've basically been in every game. The only game in fact, that's the only game they've lost by more than 2 touchdowns. The only other game that they lost and failed to cover the spread in was Lafayette. And that's worth noting because when we talk about the Sun Belt, there's 2 teams in the Sun Belt that play defense, App State and Lafayette. And no surprise, those have been the two bet-on teams in the conference so far this year. And you talked about the defensive acumen for the Mountaineers, what they've done over the last 3 weeks. And I understand this is a funky offense that they haven't seen. But we're also confident that the focus level is there for a team that got embarrassed by the squad last year, and obviously a team with huge goals. All that said, who's the pressure on here? All the pressure's on the home favorite, not only to win by margin. And they're 7-0 right now. They're getting a national TV game. They're 6-1 against the number. They've been covering all year. And yet all the sharp money is saying, and the sharp money has made it very clear, they're not laying with App State. They're taking with Georgia Southern. I'm really not that close to getting involved on this game, Ian. App State is not a team I have any interest in stepping in front of, but this point spread range is the great equalizer. And Georgia Southern, again, the only game they've lost all year by this margin came in the opener. And they can hang around, and they will shorten the game. So slight lean towards the under. If I had a free bet, I'd play under in this one. But sidewise, I'm not even close.
All right, not even close on this one. I personally am more than close on the next one. I did pull the trigger on a bets with the total in this next game. West Virginia taking on Baylor. Big 12 action. We've got Baylor taking the money throughout most of the week. They opened 17, 18.5, 19 now in most spots with Baylor as home favorites in Waco. Total 57, 57.5 right now in most locations for this game tonight down there in Waco, Texas. Look, Baylor's found an offense in recent weeks. We got to give them credit. Early in the season, Teddy, I was in this camp with Baylor. I said it earlier on the show. They had a great start to the year, non-conference wise, but you beat Stephen F. Austin, Texas San Antonio, and Rice. And at that point, going into the Iowa State game, I was like, I don't believe in Baylor yet. They've beaten on the weak non-conference schedule. It doesn't do anything for me. I bet against Baylor in that Iowa State game, their first Big 12 game, and paid the price for it. Baylor ended up winning 23-21. So after that win, I'm like, whoa, pretty good win. They got me. Maybe this team's going to be pretty good this season. And sure enough, they've just kept it going. After that Iowa State home win on September 28th, the one I lost betting against Baylor in, they beat Kansas State 31-12. They beat Texas Tech 33-30. A little fortunate there. That was probably the one game they got away with one because they didn't play great, but they found a way to come back and win in overtime against Texas Tech. And then they pounded Oklahoma State on the road in Stillwater before their bye, 45-27. This offense has been impressive, Teddy. I said it earlier. Charlie Brewer looks like a guy that can play at the next level at the NFL. He's been great. He's got two great receivers, Tyquan Thornton and Denzel Mims. Big play, explosive receivers on this Baylor team. Just absolutely fantastic. They are on offense, and they're getting it going now the last few weeks. And their defense has been very, very good as well. The concern is going to be for West Virginia, Teddy, and I mentioned this. This is an injury-ravaged defense. It's a defense that's now going to be without linebacker Josh Chandler, leading tackler, one of the leading tacklers on this team. Knee injury against Oklahoma. He's out for a month. There's another defensive lineman out. There's a top cover corner, Hakeem Bailey, suspended for the first half tonight due to targeting from the last game. This is a shorthanded, injury-plagued defense for West Virginia, and they're not a very good defense to begin with. You look at their results against any good offense they played this year. They gave up 38 to Mizzou, 24 against Kansas, and I made note of that because that was Kansas offense before they improved, before they fired their OC, which was 2 weeks ago. That's really when Kansas offense has taken off the last couple weeks, and Kansas still scored 24 on West Virginia before they fired the OC. 42 against Texas allowed, 38 they allowed to Iowa State, 52 allowed to Oklahoma. It's been a bad West Virginia defense, haven't gotten stops. They're injury-plagued, and a top cornerback suspended for the first half tonight. I don't trust them to get stops against Baylor. I will say this about West Virginia's offense, which hasn't been great, obviously, this year. They don't really have the great personnel or the great quarterback. Austin Kendall is not Will Grier. We're finding that out, or some of the other West Virginia quarterbacks. But you look at this matchup for West Virginia's offense tonight, and Baylor's defense has been good. I take nothing away from them. But, middle linebacker for Baylor, Clay Johnson, season-ending knee injury recently. I think that's going to be something that's going to impact this Baylor defense just a little bit. And when I look at West Virginia's offense, which hasn't been great, but I look at this as a situation where I think their offense can be better than people think, because you got head coach Neil Brown off a bye week, and all I've done in years past, Teddy, with Troy, especially in bowl games, this has worked well for me. When Neil Brown was coaching at Troy, you bet on Troy and you bet the over in Troy bowl games with Neil Brown and extra time to prepare. The guy has shown himself to be a good enough offensive mind, a good enough offensive play caller, a good enough guy in terms of game planning and preparing an offense with extra time to prepare off a bye week to get his team in position to put up some points. I'm not saying that's for sure going to mean West Virginia's offense works tonight against Baylor, but I think they're going to be in a better position to score and do some things offensively when you got a guy like Neil Brown with extra time to prepare to scheme an offense, to look at that Baylor defense and have that extra time on tape to say, oh, here's that one thing Baylor doesn't do that well on defense. Let's attack it. Let's exploit it. I think he's a guy that can sort of you can trust to maybe put his team in that kind of position offensively. So even though I'm not a big Austin Kendall guy or this West Virginia offense, I like the situation of getting Neil Brown and a good offensive mind off a bye week with extra time to prepare to at least do some things tonight against this Baylor defense. So I'm on the over in this game. 57, I think Baylor's going to score high 30s, if not 40s, just like most teams have against West Virginia. And I think West Virginia with the extra time, Neil Brown cooks some things up offensively, a guy I trust to do that. His track record with Troy in bowl games with extra time to prepare and over the total. Troy bowl games, it's impeccable. I think West Virginia won't be powerless and hopeless offensively. If they are, I'm in trouble with this bet, but I think West Virginia will do some things offensively. So I like the over in this game tonight. West Virginia, Baylor, Teddy. Have you got anything on the Mountaineers and the Bears?
So it's not a game that I'm playing. I certainly wouldn't try to talk you out of the over in this one. When we talk about West Virginia's defense, the numbers are really ugly, and I'm not convinced that a bye week's going to stop that. But, 42, 38, 52 their last 4 games against Texas, Iowa State, and Oklahoma, tons of yards. But a lot of that has been turnovers. The Mountaineers haven't been able to protect the football. They had 7 combined against Texas and Iowa State. And when you're putting the defense on the field in short fields, you're likely to have struggles. And that's certainly been the case for West Virginia. But I think their defense is probably just as weak as we think that it is. The yardage numbers just haven't been there. The red zone execution hasn't been there on defense either. So I do think Baylor's going to get theirs. But I have my concerns about I've got my concerns about laying a price here with Baylor. I'll leave it at that. In the sense of much like what we talked with App State. Here's the undefeated team at home, national TV audience, and all of a sudden, if things don't break from the opening kick right, the pressure just ratchets and ratchets and ratchets. And that definitely worries me about the Baylor side here. So does the fact that defense has shown some cracks the last couple of games, against Texas, Oklahoma State, 2 good offenses, but a defense that had basically shut everybody down for the first 5 games of the season hasn't done that over the last 2 contests. So over does make sense to me, Ian. I wouldn't try to talk you out of it at all. It hasn't made it in my pocket, but you make a pretty compelling case.
Neil Brown off a bye. I love that guy with the extra time to prepare, especially offensively. I don't know if he can fix, as you mentioned, fix the defense. Defense just might be lousy, and they're up against a really good Baylor offense. But give this guy time to get an offensive game plan together against, as you mentioned, a Baylor defense that has shown some cracks the last few weeks. I think it can happen. That's my one bet tonight, football-wise, NFL or college football pregame, over 57 with West Virginia taking on Baylor, that game on ESPN tonight. All right, Teddy, we saved it for you because you're an NBA guy. We saved the 3 NBA games until you were with us on the show, so let's get into them now. We got the Miami Heat, Atlanta Hawks. Miami laying 6.5 on the road, total 215. Obviously, if you watched this is actually a home-and-home series. Atlanta was in Miami the other night. We all saw Trae Young, obviously, getting injured that game. Atlanta, huge blow to the Hawks, a team that, talk about depth, it's going to be tested, and we'll see if they have that depth. It's a weird spot, though, Teddy, because Miami just pounded the piss out of this team a couple of days ago with Trae Young in that game when he got injured. Atlanta just offensively fell apart. Miami ran away with it. But do they have the focus? Do they have the mindset to come right back in Atlanta tonight, win this game by margin? They have to win by 7 or more to cover this number against an Atlanta team that it's an age-old theory, Teddy, in the NBA. First game without a key player. This is going to be that game for Atlanta. Do they step up to the plate? Do they show up? Do they collectively rally the troops and say, hey, for at least one game, let's get it done. Let's be competitive. Let's try to pay this Miami team back. Personally, I'd play Atlanta in this game or nothing, but I don't love it by any stretch. What do you think, Teddy, here with the Heat and the Hawks?
Yeah, I mean the issue with with Atlanta is more than just Trae Young. Remember, Kevin Huerter's not right yet. He's still coming back on a very heavy minutes restriction so far, and of course, a key member, a key portion of that backcourt. Evan Turner's not right. There was talk that Turner was going to be at the point. He missed last game. We don't know if he's going to be able to go. So it's not just Young. The entire Hawks backcourt, the guy who they're hoping to get, the pieces are hoping to get the majority of their minutes from, isn't happening right now. So that concerns me for the Atlanta side today. All that being said, this is NBA handicapping 101. The star goes out, you bet on the team the first game. You don't bet on the team that just blew them out at home and now is going on the road and go, yeah, we can turn it up with 3 minutes left in the fourth and win this one. And that was Jimmy Butler in Miami making his debut on Monday night. I was watching that. Was that Monday or Tuesday? Whatever day it was. Tuesday night. I was watching the game. And, man, that was a big game. The Heat, there was a lot of energy in the arena. I worry about them matching that tonight. So I guess in theory I'm with you. If I was going to get involved, it would be Atlanta plus. But I'm not getting involved with the Hawks backcourt that is absolutely devastated with injuries right now. Hawks have been real good in both home games so far this season. And with a young team, we're looking to bet on them in this spot. And they've been a value squad until that loss against Miami where Young got hurt, early in the second quarter. So I'm not playing the game. If I had to play it, it'd be Atlanta plus, but I'm really not close.
Yeah, I mean, the situation's nice for Atlanta. It's a little dubious for Miami, but the injury concerns, you can't gloss them over. They're big time for Atlanta. The next game we've got, this is the other TNT. I thought the TNT game, the late one, was that Spur-Clipper game. It's not. It's actually Nuggets and Pelicans. A little surprised, actually, that Spurs-Clippers isn't that TNT game. But nevertheless, we've got Denver and the Pelicans, 0-4. New Orleans Pelicans. Can we find some defense on this New Orleans Pelicans team? Holy mackerel. Just absolutely hideous. They can't find the defense with a telescope on that court right now for this team. Absolutely awful so far defensively. And it's going to be challenged by this Denver team, which we know can score and certainly has put more onus defensively themselves this season because they know they're going to step things up defensively. If they're going to go further, I should say, in the playoffs, they're going to have to step things up defensively. Michael Malone was not happy with the team's defense against Dallas. In that game the other night, they blew a lead late. They actually had a lead for most of that game. They found a way to give it back, and Dallas steals a win. The Mavericks against the Nuggets the other night. Michael Malone wasn't happy. You got a quality team where the coach was giving them the old finger wag and the old tirade after the game. So you would expect a nice little bounce back effort here from this Denver Nuggets team. We know Golden State's been hideous defensively so far this season. Bettors thinking New Orleans will be better defensively tonight. Bettors certainly think Denver's going to be a little bit better defensively tonight after Michael Malone criticized their defense in the game against Dallas. This total opened 226 down to 222.5 here in this game. Teddy, your thoughts on the game and just in general with New Orleans? Is this team not capable of playing good defense? Is it a personnel issue defensively? Or in the last game in particular, when they played Golden State, was it just a situation where Golden State just shot crazy good and New Orleans can fix their defensive issues? What do you think here about this game, Nuggets and Pelicans?
I mean, when's the last time you saw an Alvin Gentry team play good defense? That's not his MO. And that hasn't been the Pelicans' MO, and I don't think it's going to be the Pelicans' MO. This team wants to outscore their opponents, which is great when everyone's on deck and on board, but they're not right now. Now, let's talk about the markets for a minute. We saw this with Sacramento yesterday. We're seeing this with New Orleans today. The markets will adjust for the winless team playing at home against an opponent, in theory, that they should be competitive with or should be able to beat. And that's the situation here with the Pelicans. They were able to beat Denver a couple times last year. They are at home coming off that was a complete no-show game against the Warriors. Again, they were down by 20 at halftime. And, of course, Golden State hasn't beaten anybody before or since. So it's a loss that looks even worse in retrospect. But the key issue was no-show there. I mean, there was really the intensity, the effort wasn't there from the opening tip. So much as this is a circle, all right, we got to play better spot for Denver. It's a similar spot for New Orleans. It's in a spot where one team's coming and the other team doesn't care or is fat and happy or whatever. And there's a little bit of shading in this number towards New Orleans because they are the winless team off a bad loss at home in a game in theory that they should win. So from that type of standpoint, I'm not necessarily looking to step in front of the Pelicans. And I mean, look, Brandon Ingram's been really good. Josh Hart's been a nice surprise. Lonzo Ball's been pretty good at the point. I mean, there's hope, and they should have Holiday back in the lineup as well. He missed the last game, and that's an impact guy for New Orleans. Instant offense for them. And I'm telling you, I've watched the Nuggets play. I think I've seen at least parts of all their games. I'm not excited about laying a price with Denver right now. Despite having most of their key pieces back, it really feels like they're still figuring out offensive roles. They went on a really ugly stretch the other night on the road where they almost gave away to Sacramento, then came back and then let Dallas beat them. And I understand that Malone's like, we got to play defense. We got to play defense. Okay, do it. Instead of talking about it, because there's certainly been issues like with that for Denver right now. So if I had to play anything in the game, I'd probably play over. That's all New Orleans wants to do. And I'm not convinced that saying we need to play defense and preaching we need to play defense is all going to sudden make Denver turn it up a notch. So lean over, not a strong opinion.
All right, and the last game on the NBA card, San Antonio and the Clip Joint. The LA Clippers, we've got the LA Clippers 4.5 home favorites, total 228. 4.5 home favorites, even though the Spurs are undefeated, and Clippers coming in off second night of back-to-backs after being in Utah last night and getting drilled by the Jazz, but Kawhi Leonard sat out in that game. He'll be back tonight for the Clippers. Clippers off a loss, Teddy. Keep an eye on this little emerging trend this year with this team. Good teams off a loss, elite teams off a loss. We talk about it a lot. These are teams you don't want to go against in spots like this. We saw the Clippers flat spot against Phoenix. They were coming off the Laker game, the Golden State game, statement national TV games. Then you played Phoenix, and you predictably fell flat in that one a little bit in that one. So no harm, no foul there. You bounced back after that. Then you lost to Utah in the game after that. But again, we're starting to see that the Clippers, just in general, Teddy, they're going to look like a team that after a loss, I'd either want to back them or not back that game or not take that game at all. I think the Clippers off a loss is going to be something you're going to want to look for tonight. And I know the Spurs are off to a nice start, but to me, there's a Clippers spot, 4.5. I would certainly lean to the Clippers, the home favorite here. You got anything for us, Teddy, with Spurs Clippers?
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, and yet I'm still not willing to pull the trigger for a team in the first back-to-backs they have all season. I'm not going to lay points with the Clips, even though I agree with that. And I'm not. San Antonio's 3-0 straight up. They're 0-3 against the spread. They haven't looked good. They've been able to. Their veterans have been able to make plays down the stretch of tight games, and maybe this is a tight game. But leaving home for the first time against a Clippers team, as you mentioned, off a loss. I know I don't want San Antonio tonight. It is L.A. or pass for me. And when it comes to the numbers from last night, again, we want to pay full attention to who played and how many minutes they played and how fresh they are tonight. Because when you find a team, everybody played 40-plus minutes last night, the key components, those aren't necessarily teams you're going to get involved with, especially early on second night of back-to-backs. And the Clips last night, the only guy that got to 30 minutes was Landry Shamet. That was it. He played 33. Everyone else 30 or less. So they should be relatively fresh here. And the Clips are as deep as any team in the NBA. Doc Rivers has a bench that he was very comfortable going to, and he got used extensively in the second half last night. So for a second night of back-to-back situation, I think the Clips will be relatively fresh here, especially with Kawhi sitting last night. And when the coach says, all right, we're going to sit our star for this game, but play him for that game, this is a message to the team. The team is, it's that game that we're focused on. Home favorite or pass for me in that one.
All right, so Teddy leaning as well as I am with the Clippers in this one. We've got the Sweaty Butcher loving the over in the Denver-New Orleans game. Hammer it, he says. Okay, well, again, when you say hammer it, hammer it if you can afford to bet the amount of money you actually put on it. You got to be able to make bets where you can, if you lose the money from that bet, you say, hey, it's not going to drive me nuts. It's not going to make me toss and turn at night and have nightmares. That's the thing. You got to always make sure you stay within reason and your limits when you're placing these wagers, no matter how much you like it. Because again, Dave, our old friend Dave Malinsky, we still miss him. He always said, the odd, quirky bounces of the ball, the calls that can go in a particular game, you just never know when they're going to happen and how they're going to happen. It always puts you in a position where you just can never, ever unload and put your whole bankroll and your whole account on one game or one side or one total. There's no way you can do that. So, yeah, always preach discipline and betting within reason for sure when it comes to the betting board on a daily basis. Teddy, we'll turn our attention to college football right now with you because Jimmy brings that up. I do want to hit some NFL right at the end of the show, though, with you before we call it a show and wrap things up. But college football, I know you've played a bunch of bets already. Jimmy knows what they are. I don't, honestly. But if you want to recap those, you can. And any new college football wagers that you have placed and you have made between yesterday morning's show and this morning.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Let's recap. And I'll tell you the one bet. And I told everyone the bet that I was going to make yesterday. And I made it right after the show. But I got involved with Oregon State, betting number 365 plus the 6 at Arizona. I took BC plus 3. Betting number 333 at Syracuse. That was a bad number. This was a bad number, too. Hawaii minus 2.5 at Fresno. Betting number 396. I could have gotten better than that. I got Ole Miss plus 19.5 at Auburn. I got a plus 20 on that game. Why did I write 19.5? I'm almost sure I got plus 20. I got USC plus 5 in my pocket, betting number 344. I got Nebraska betting number 319 in my pocket. USC plus 5, Nebraska minus 2.5. And as I said yesterday, I was going to bet UCLA right after the game, right after the show, and I bet UCLA minus 6.5. That's betting number 346. I got a buy sign on the Bruins right now. I do not have a buy sign on Colorado. I'm not convinced the Buffs' second half is going to be a whole lot better than their first half. And a team that let go of the rope down the stretch last year is a team that I have no hesitation expecting to let go of the rope down the stretch this year. I thought UCLA was relatively cheap at 6.5. So that's the one that I've added to the card since yesterday, betting number 346, UCLA minus a 6.5. And that number is still widely available. 6.5 is just about everywhere.
All right, very good. So Ron Crawford in the chat, and I make sure I mention this, he wanted to pose 2 college football games questions for you on the card. First one being a betting rotation 335, 336, MAC action, Buffalo, Eastern Michigan. He likes Buffalo in that game. What do you like there, Bulls and Eagles?
So I was dead wrong about Buffalo last week. I thought that Central was going to go in there and win the game. Obviously, that was not the case. Things went wrong early for Central Michigan. A lot of that had to do with turnovers. 5 turnovers for the Chippewas. I'll give Buffalo's defense credit for doing that. They had one other big turnover game against Temple, so we know that they're capable of forcing opponents into making mistakes. And now, of course, obviously back-to-back wins for the Bulls after knocking off Akron the previous week. All that said, I'm not convinced that Buffalo is the better of these two teams. And when we look at the strength of schedule and the competition that Eastern's faced, they faced a lot of good teams in this conference. They've been struggling against the point spread of late, so there's not any kind of a betting bandwagon with the Eagles right now. And I don't know that defensively they're as good as Buffalo. I think offensively they're a good notch or two better than Buffalo. And from a betting standpoint, generally we want the good defense. In this point spread range, I'm not convinced that the good defense is going to be enough. Buffalo's got to score, and it's a very limited offense right now. So it's not a game I'm getting involved with. Slightest of lean to the Eagles, but really it's nothing I'm going to bet.
All right, nothing you're going to bet. And the other game that he wanted to ask Ron Crawford, UAB, Tennessee. Tennessee opened 10, 12-point home favorites now, total 48. Blazers and Vols, Teddy, what you got?
So this is one that's a really interesting game for me because UAB, literally, they haven't been a dog yet this season. And all September, I'm like, I'm looking for the spot to bet against UAB. Where am I going to find a way to bet against UAB? And that time came and that time went, and I never found an appropriate spot to load up against UAB. And so be it. And now, here we are. It's November this weekend. My rationale for not liking UAB, they lost everyone and the depth issues and the replacing that core group of guys that built the program from the start. My rationale for not liking UAB is gone. They're not that team now. They're 2 months into the season. And they've been pretty good. Better than expected. Certainly in my mind. All that said, I'm not convinced that UAB is going to go into Knoxville and hang with the Vols. I'm not. And Tennessee, finally taking care of business and blowing a team out. The Vols have been big underachievers this season, and they've taken all the sharp money this week. And I think Tennessee's interested. That's the key. I spent some time yesterday looking for quotes, and I didn't find anything, but it doesn't mean they're not out there. I'll spend some more time today. But I want to see what that locker room's talking about for Tennessee, because if they're interested, asking them to win this game by 2 touchdowns is not too much of a stretch, in my opinion. If they're not, UAB's live to win the game straight up. We know that UAB tends to get up for their games against the Power 5 conference schools. So as of this moment, I have no wager. I'm going to continue to look for info, and if I find something good, I'll update tomorrow.
All right, good stuff. I'm going to ask Teddy about some NFL for Sunday and Monday, for that matter, in just a second. I'm going to throw out my college bets that I've made so far. I haven't had the chance to do that yet. Here's what I'm on so far. I'm on both side and total in the Oregon-USC game. I'm on USC plus the points and the over. The over's already been hit a little bit, 62 now in that game, but I see a lot of points in that game. I think USC will score, Oregon too. And Oregon's defense has shown some cracks in it. I'm also on the over in Kansas State, Kansas. I've been riding Kansas overs ever since the OC change. Easy overs back-to-back weeks. The Texas game, the Texas Tech game flew over the total. 54. I know Kansas State plays slow, but they're efficient offensively, and Kansas still has a bad defense. Kansas's offense is perked up. Kansas State's defense, as they showed last week, is still vulnerable too. So 54.5, reasonable total there. I like that one over as well. A lot of overs for me in this card. SMU in the over against Memphis. That's another one I like, the side and the total in that game. I was looking at Tulsa again because I took Tulsa against Cincy. I took Tulsa against Memphis last week, but I'm worried Tulsa doesn't show up here against Tulane. Tulsa's that gut-wrenching loss last week against Memphis, gut-wrenching loss. I mean, I don't know how you bounce back from that, to be honest. I'm worried that's a no-show for Tulsa this week. I love taking points like that with them against Tulane there. I'd love to, but I'm worried about their mindset, Tulsa, going into that game after the way they lost last week, the way they lost to SMU as well earlier this season. Tough losses. Philip Montgomery's going to have to pump up the spirits again for that team. Middle Tennessee State, Charlotte. I like the over in that game. So I've been riding Charlotte over the total like gangbusters, and they just keep on going over the total. That total's been hammered. I'll caution you now. I got in on that total when it was 61. It's 65 now, and I knew that total had to go up. With the Charlotte team, it did. So caution you. It's a worse number now, but that is what I bet with that one. Middle Tennessee and Charlotte. That's about it right now with college. I'm being told we got to wrap up, but quickly, Teddy, I'm going to throw my NFL at you as well. And you can give us some thoughts on it. Not a great card this week. I'm light on the NFL. I'm looking at, so far, I'm going to lay 3 with Cleveland because I think Denver's toast. You're seeing Joe Flacco criticize the coaching and the offensive play calling. A brutal, bitter loss last week against Indy when they actually fought their guts out and still lost. I don't know if there's anything left in that Denver tank. Buy low with Cleveland. I like Detroit, Oakland over 50. I think that's a big-time touchdown fest. 2 defenses I don't trust. Lions, Raiders over 50, and give me the Colts. You're going to give me the Colts against Pittsburgh. You're going to give me the Colts pick and price range. They're playing well. I know Pittsburgh, it's not completely out of the playoff mix yet, but beating Miami doesn't do anything for me. Beating up a Charger team on Sunday Night Football doesn't do much for me. You're playing a good, well-coached, big coaching edge too, Reich over Tomlin. So I like Indy there. And then on Monday night, I like the over in the Dallas Giants game. That's all I bet so far in the NFL. Teddy, quick takes on the NFL before we wrap up the show.
So I'm with you on 2 of your plays. I'm with you on the Browns. I thought the Browns was the best bet on the board in the NFL this weekend. I laid 3 minus 110. Now it's 3 minus 120 and higher. But I do expect that to get to 3.5. If ever there was a Cleveland spot, this is it. And I also bet the Lions over. Lions-Raiders over. I mean, the Raiders, you can't sack Carr right now. They're not turning the ball over. And their secondary is abysmal. So I expect Detroit to be able to throw the football. I expect Oakland to be able to move the football. That game does feel like a high-scoring affair. I am against you on Colts Steelers. I love this spot for Pittsburgh. Love it. A hungry team. Indy's won 3 in a row. Pittsburgh's trying to get back in the playoff race. And from a defensive standpoint, no comparison between the Steelers and the Colts. The Colts are bad against the run. They're bad against the pass. Pittsburgh's good against the run, good against the pass. So in a pick-em range at home, I was very interested in the Steelers in a we got to save our season type of win, even on a short week. So I got Pittsburgh there, and I laid with Buffalo against the Redskins. I love the concept of the Bills coming off a no-show game. I love the concept of the markets not looking at Buffalo as a team that's capable of winning by double digits. I don't know how the Redskins score this week. Keenum's still not practicing. They want him to be the starter. If he goes, that's great, but he's not practicing with an offense that doesn't work and a defense that can create points by themselves. I thought the Bills were very reasonably priced at less than 10. So that's what I've gotten involved in the NFL. 4 plays in total, Ian. 2 with you, 1 against you, and 1 that you have no opinion on.
All right, very good. Yeah, I'm higher on the Colts than a lot of people. I said that weeks ago, actually, when I was with you. I'm higher on the Colts. Been high on the Colts all season. They've been a good ATS team as well. Finally, last week they didn't cover, but get them a win. Win will cover the number in that one for sure. The one that I'm mulling over, that I have not pulled the trigger yet on the NFL, and maybe because they frustrated the hell out of me last week. I thought it was a good spot off the bye with Bruce Arians finally getting the chance to coach some mistakes out of Jameis Winston, and he made the same goddamn mistakes he always makes, turnovers inside his own 20 that put Tennessee in great field position. That game just absolutely just sickened me to watch that play out like that. I'm still a glutton for punishment that I'm considering Tampa Bay again, plus the points against Seattle. But I don't know if I've got the guts to pull the trigger again after what I saw last week. That's the one I'm mulling over. I haven't bet yet, but we'll see if I get the gumption maybe to try the Bucks one more time in that one before the week's out. That's going to wrap up the show. We're completely out of time. I'm being told we got to wrap this thing up. So, Teddy, it's always good to be with you when I'm filling in as host for Jimmy. You can find Teddy on Twitter at Teddy_covers. He's here every morning on Betting with the Bag. Teddy, good as always to be with you. Have a great night and good luck with your bets tonight.
Hey, thank you, Ian. I'll take all the luck I can get, brother. And you want to have fun, read the Bruce Arians quote about Winston for the Bucs last Sunday. He didn't blame Winston at all. He said, it's all on the receiving core. Our quarterback played great. I don't know if that's trying to get the confidence level up or what, but thanks so much, Ian. Really enjoyed hanging with you again today, and we'll be back on Jimmy and Betting with the Bag tomorrow when Jimmy returns.